Hi all, I'm Age from Liquid Earth. Welcome to the channel. If you're new here, I post every single week. It's all about photo and video, so if that interests you, consider subscribing. Today's video is all about the iPhone and the camera app in particular, all the features and functions that you need to take some great photos. So we'll include the normal photo modes, there's panoramic, there's live mode, and there's night mode as well. And I'll show you how to optimize the settings to take some great photos. Now, most people know how to take a photo with their camera, but there's some quick start functions, so let's show you those first of all. When you start up your camera, you can swipe from left to right and you're straight into the photo mode and you can take your photo. You can also use Siri, so if you say, "Hey Siri, take a photo," it's going to open the photo app and you're ready to take a photo straight away. Now, along the bottom, you can scroll from photo to portrait and pano. There's also live mode and night mode that we're going to cover as well. And there's some quick functions to take some photos and video actually when you're in the photo mode. So obviously to take a picture, we're going to press the shutter button. But if you press and hold, you're going to take a video. Keep it held for as long as you want the video and then release and it stops the video. If you press and drag over to the right hand side, it's going to lock on the video and that will continue until you press the stop. Then if you click and drag to the left, it's going to take burst photos. You can then use the volume buttons too, depending on your setup, which I'll go through. But if you press and hold the top volume, that's going to take burst. And if you press and hold the bottom volume, volume down, that's going to continue to take a video until you release. Let's now go to the settings and we'll optimize those for you. Pressing the settings and then scroll down until you see your camera. And then that's got some settings which we'll go through now for you. So first of all, you've got formats. I would recommend high efficiency, which Apple have now adopted, and it reduces the file size to about half the file size for at least the same quality. It's actually a 16-bit, unlike JPEG, which is the most compatible version here. That's only 8-bit. So things like sunset pictures and things like that, you're not going to get so much banding of the sky. So actually it's a better format, a more updated one. If you ever get any problems though, you can always switch back to most compatible. Apple is intelligent enough to know that if you're sharing a photo and it's not compatible with HEIC, then it will convert it to a JPEG as well. So there doesn't seem to be too much to worry about, but you can always convert back to most compatible, which is the JPEG if you wish. Next up, you've got some video modes. I've got a separate video for that. I'll put a link to that at the end of the video for you. Let's have a look at preserve settings then. So preserving settings, if we go into our camera mode, then it's going to preserve the last setting that we're on. Let's show you what that means. So if we go into our camera and now I was to choose video and I'm in video mode, and then we come out of our app altogether, when we go back in, it's preserved that so we're on video. Otherwise it will always go to the default, which is photo. So switch that on if you want to preserve those settings. You've also got creative controls that you can preserve as well, just like the last filter and the aspect ratio, etc. I keep that off because I like to start from scratch on that. Same for the exposure adjustment. That's brightening or darkening your image manually. If you preserve the settings, then it's going to be darker or lighter depending on how you've set it. I would keep that off. Live photos is on by default, and if you select on this one, then if you turn live photos off in the camera app, which is this little icon at the top right hand side here, next time you go into it, that's going to be off. Because you can do it manually on the camera itself though, I would suggest that you don't adjust that and keep that switched off. We've demonstrated volume up for burst. I would keep that on. It's a quick way to do burst photos. And then you've got scan QR codes, which I guess you can keep that on. There's a grid overlay, which is quite useful. If we switch that on, show you what that looks like in our camera app. Notice it's got this rule of thirds grid now across, so ideal for lining your photos up. You can mirror the front camera so it looks exactly as it is on screen. Bear in mind that writing will be the other way around. I keep that off. View outside the frame is quite useful. If you're using your 1x lens, it's going to show you what the 0.5x lens will look like outside the frame in case you want to switch to that mode. And then you have prioritize faster shooting, and that's when you're rapidly pressing the shutter. It's going to take more photos, but at slightly less quality. And don't forget you've also got the burst mode, so you can keep that on or off. I keep that on. Depending what phone you've got HDR or Smart HDR. I would keep that on, although you can switch it off here and switch it on in the camera app itself. And if we go to the camera app to take a look, the problem with the iPhone 11 and 12 is that this is not smart HDR here, so be wary of that. If you're switching smart HDR off and turning it on in the camera, that's standard HDR, which was a previous version. So my recommendation is if you've got smart HDR, I would keep that switched on. Smart HDR takes better pictures by using the available light from different exposures and blending them together. It's a great option to get well exposed photos. And if you've got the brand new iPhone 12s, any of those, then you've got the lens correction option and you've got the scene detection option. Switch those both on. Scene detection is ideal. It looks at the scene, analyzes it, and then it exposes correctly for a face, for the sky, etc. And lens correction, there's always distortion, particularly on wide angle lenses. It's going to correct that automatically for you. I would keep that switched on. And then you've got volume control for the shutter. Now, if you're in the app itself, swipe down from the right hand side and use your volume controls here. And you can turn down the shutter sound. You can't do that within the app using the volume controls because they're assigned to photo taking and video taking. Let's have a look around the screen itself then. Top left, you've got your flash and you can turn that to auto or off. If you scroll up from the center, you get some more options along the bottom there, and you can see you've got your flash there. You've got three options there. Flash auto, so auto is when the symbol is on in the top left hand side. You can switch it on always if you want to. That's okay if you need it on for particular scenarios for a set period of time. And you've got off. Now bear in mind the flash is only going to work from about a meter and a half away anyway, and the night mode now is so good on the new cameras that I don't use the camera flash very often at all. So I keep that switched off. Next symbol is night mode, which we'll discuss in a moment for you. Let's go back to our options. You can also press this little up arrow here and you've got your options along the bottom. The night mode and the live mode we'll talk about in a moment. You've got aspect ratio, so you can change that if you wish to. A couple of options there. The default is 4:3, that's the size of the sensor, so it makes sense to keep it on there. You can always crop afterwards if you wish to. You've got exposure compensation, so you can manually adjust the brightness or darkness of your image here, and that'll keep those settings so that when you take a photo, they're still set until you adjust that again. And you have a look at the top, you've got this little meter here that tells you that the exposure compensation is off. So for instance, if I was to go into video mode and then back to photo mode, you've still got your exposure compensation dial showing there. So let's switch that back to standard. We're going to turn that back to 0. And then you have a self timer. So if you want to take a photo using the self timer, you've got two options, 3 seconds and 10 seconds. So I'll choose 3 seconds. Let's take a selfie, and then we're going to press the shutter button, gives you a little countdown, and then it's going to take the photo. Now you can zoom in. If you press and hold this little 1 times here, you can zoom in manually. You've got 0.5 and 1, which on the iPhone 11 is the 2 lenses at the back. You might have 3 options if you've got the Pro versions. If you scroll past your lenses, you're into digital zoom. Be a little bit careful with that because it's cropping the image and reducing the quality a little bit. So use that if you have to, but sparingly. And then of course you've got the flip in the bottom right hand side, which we've just shown turns to the selfie camera. The final option on the right hand side are filters. So you've got a selection of filters that you can choose for your images. The good thing about the iPhone is that virtually all the features that I'm going to show you, you can apply to photos afterwards. And we'll be looking at that too for you. Now the iPhones will take the image and automatically adjust the focus and the exposure, but you can do it manually if you wish, and it's particularly useful in difficult lighting conditions. Say for instance it's a sunset and you want to see more of the sky and it's blown out, then all you do is you tap anywhere in the image and it's going to adjust the focus and lock the exposure for that particular part. So if I press on my model's eye here, that's focused on the eye and then I can take the picture. If I focus on the dogs, that's sharp in focus and it's slightly blurred around the eye now. And you can also lock the position because if you're selecting something and then moving your phone, it's going to just change that and go back into automatic. So now I'm back into automatic. So what if I want to lock it? Well, press and hold. it will say AEAF lock. That's locked the exposure and the focus. You can adjust the exposure though by sliding with your finger up or down. So if we get that to where we want it, that's now locked. So exposure's locked, focus is locked, and we can take our picture. Press anywhere on the screen to unlock again. And if you're moving your camera around now, it will go back into the auto mode. Live mode on the iPhones is an excellent option for capturing lots of frames during a 3-second period. What it does is when you're in the live mode and we switch it on in the top right hand side, and when you press the shutter, it's actually taking photos from 1.5 seconds before you press the shutter to 1.5 seconds afterwards. There's a series of photos. And if we go in and have a look at the photo that we've just taken, and then press the live button, and you've got a series of photos. That's really useful if you've got moving subjects, children, pets, things like that. Let's show you a photo and how you can actually change the key photo for one that's better. I'm going to open up the Photos app and go to all my live photos. So press Albums, and then in Albums you'll see you've got some options there. Live Photos is highlighted as Album, so you can go into that and we can choose a live photo. Now this is a good option. Let's press Edit on this live photo. Notice that the subject in the center is in focus, and on the right hand side, bit of movement, the subject's blurred. So if I press the live mode now, along the bottom I have all of the images, and I can scroll along and choose whatever image I want and make that the key photo. So let's say this one, for instance, I want the key photo. Just click on key photo and press done, and now that's saved in your live photo as the key photo. If you want to keep your live photo and save a separate version of this, then press this share icon, choose duplicate, and then you can duplicate as a still photo, and that's going to put that on your camera roll as a still photo and retain the original with whatever key photo you've set. Now I'm in Library and All Photos, and you've got stills that I've saved in different aspect ratios from the live photo, and I've still got the live photo there as well. Very simple. There's lots more to live photos actually, and I've got a separate video all about live photos. You can add some great effects like boomerang, and also you can do light exposures with live mode as well, so check that out as well. Again, they're all in the link on the bottom right hand side at the very end of the video for you. Let's now take a look at the portrait mode. So we'll switch over to portrait mode in the app, and then depending on where your subject is, it might give you a little warning, move further away or move closer. So adjust your distance until that goes away. Now professionals often use aperture, which isn't available on the iPhones, to adjust the depth of field, and to make a picture really stand out you can have a sharp subject and a blurred background, and it makes the picture look great. The default in the portrait mode is natural light, and you can adjust that if you want to, so there's various settings that you can adjust. So you've got this stage light, for instance. Let's just take a picture first of all. So we're in portrait mode, we've taken a picture, and now if we have a look at our picture, notice the really blurry background. But if you press edit here, you can change the depth of field manually afterwards. All you do is press this f2.8 and make some adjustments. So if we scroll over to the right hand side, more of the image is in focus. So look at the dogs, for instance. And then if we scroll to the very left hand side, then it blurs more of the image apart from your main subject. The default is 2.8. So some options that you can change after you've taken the photo or before you take the photo. You can just adjust that. So if we go into our portrait mode, press the little F in the top right hand side, now I can adjust it before I take the picture. But it doesn't matter what setting I put it on here because I can always adjust it afterwards. And it's the same for the lighting effects as well. Let's go into our Photos app, and then we can choose Albums, and then you've got Portraits. Just like live photos, you have the portraits separated out for you. So let's choose this one maybe, and if I press Edit, we've got the lighting effects that we can apply before, or now we can apply after we've taken the photo. Very simple, very useful. You can also take a selfie in portrait mode as well. So if we choose portrait mode, switch the camera to a selfie, and now let's actually put this so that we blur the background a little bit, and then we can take a picture. And then we have a look, we've got the blurred background. Press on the F and we can adjust the blurriness of the background. One final note, if you've got an iPhone 12, you have the ability to take RAW photos. Go into your settings and turn Apple Pro RAW on. That will take RAW photos and it'll also use the computational photography on them, but of course you can adjust all those settings in post. For iPhone 11 and 12 users, you have night mode, the ability to take great pictures in very low light conditions without the need for using a flash. Night mode is automatic, but you have a symbol in the top left hand side of your camera screen. If you press that, you'll get some options along the bottom. The first thing it says is auto. If you take a picture in night mode, it's going to take it automatically. Let's turn off the lights and show you an example here. So the lights are off and I've got very little light shining on my subject, and that's when the night mode symbol comes on. So it might not show until it gets dark. Now notice it says 4S, that's 4 seconds. It's automatic. Let's take a picture. It says hold still, and we can take a picture in night mode, and then we'll compare that with a picture with the night mode off. So if I scroll right over to the very left hand side, it turns night mode off. Let's take a picture, and now let's go and check those two pictures out. So we've got our picture here that we took without night mode, and notice we've got lots of different artifacts on the image. And if we go into our picture taken with the night mode and take a look at that one, it's a much cleaner image. Nice and bright, and you can see quite a difference between the two. You can also experiment with the settings a little bit. So if I go into max, I can choose difference between the auto and the maximum setting. And if you're hand holding your camera and taking a picture, let's hand hold this and start taking a picture on the max. You get this little crosshair that helps you to keep it aligned and holding very still whilst you're taking the picture. And then when you look at your pictures, you've got a nice clean night mode image. Panorama mode is quite useful. So if we go into Pano and we take a panorama by holding the camera and pressing the shutter and just moving around and following the arrow. You can go as far as you want to there. Press the shutter when you're finished and it will very quickly stitch together a panoramic photo for you. You can swap the direction very easily by just clicking on the arrow. And you can also take pictures horizontally as well as vertically. If you want to see the video settings version of this, bottom left hand side there's a link for you. Thanks very much for watching guys, really do appreciate it, and I hope to see you next time. Take care.